Technology updates. Very interesting case studies. Let's look at the first one. European expansion after Stripe plots European expansion after 95 billion valuation. America's most valuable startup, Stripe, is plotting a major expansion in Europe. 95 billion is the valuation. The firm, which is worth 95 billion, that is 68 billion pounds, plans to add 1,000 jobs in Ireland alone over the next 5 years after raising 600 million from investors. That will more than triple its presence in the country. Launched in the US by two Irish brothers in 2011, Stripe processes payments for firms that ranges from tech giants like Amazon, Waitrose, name it. Its business has boomed during the pandemic as online shopping exploded. Stripe, which has a dual headquarters in San Francisco and Dublin, is now active in 42 countries, including 31 in Europe, where many of its fastest growing customers are based. Stripe. Now, billion-pound company has no HR department. Greg Jackson is the founder and CEO of Octopus Energy, a UK startup valued more than 1.4 billion pounds, that is $2 billion, selling green energy. Despite now having more than 1,200 employees, he says he has no interest in traditional things like human resources and information technology departments. Running smaller companies of around 5 people, he would learn to cover HR and IT issues himself. But what if there is a case of bullying to be resolved or contract dispute that requires specialist knowledge? Jackson says he expects his managers to take personal responsibility for these things with appropriate training rather than shelving responsibility to a third party, just as he used to do when managing his teams. He thinks this approach allows the companies to scale faster as well as making employees more self-reliant. Another case study. Ask your investors for a yes or no. Ryan Edwards can't remember the exact amount in a London shop when he was inspired to start his music logging venture, Odoo. He has been the drummer of British rock band The Lions, who had 210 top 10 hits, Domino Effect. Ryan used his knowledge of the digital sector and data science to design an electronic system called Odoo to put into the venues, which logs the details of every song they play. It is being used by the performing right bodies of several countries, which collects the performance fees and distribute the royalties. Interesting. Ryan said his biggest challenge when he started the company was to persuade investors to fund the development of the Odoo system. He met many people who said they believed in his business idea, but who hesitated in actually handing over their money. He says when he was often taken blank agreement forms to meetings with investors and offered to fill it out with details on the spot. I'm very clear with them exactly how their money is going to be used, why we need it at that period in time, and exactly the date when we need to happen. Always give the justification to say, yes, we really need this right now. All this may sound very demanding for an entrepreneur who is asking investors to hand their money. The trick, says Ryan, is to be assertive but never to be rude. Mums at work don't take any nonsense. There's no time. Louis Rocher is a firm believer that new mums make formidable employees. Like many working parents, the chief executive of a price comparison site, Confused.com, says lockdown is a challenge, but recounts it might be bringing a lot of benefits in the future. She was in hospitals in the labor ward, and she had a little mini office set up around her. And Oshie is in her first pregnancy, and she had a senior role at Insurance Admiral Group at the time. Actually interviewed an employee while he was in the ward waiting to give birth. She recalls having to explain why women were screaming in the background. Today, Oshie has 2 daughters, aged 5 and 3. She was heavily pregnant with her second daughter when she was successfully applied the role of a CEO at Confused.com in 2017, having been the finance director at the company. she was so keen to strut into her first CEO role that she took only 8 weeks maternity leave. On her first day as CEO, she had to bring a newborn into work because her husband could not help that day. You know, I love it with the women babies. When they come back, they don't have any nonsense because they don't have time. She has found this to be true, and she has, she breaks it down with 3 points when passing on to other female employees. Super organized, nothing will scare you again in those meetings where people are not making a decision or procrastinating. You are going to cut through the nonsense. Interest in esports will only grow and grow. Esports now. Even before COVID-19 arrived, the world competitive esports has built up a huge viewer numbers. People watching events on their computers around the world. Then the pandemic hit, most of us were stuck at home and audience figure rose even higher. Last year, 435.9 million people around the world watched esports events, according to the figures from Newzoo, a market research group that focuses on the sector. At the same time, esports worldwide revenue hits 947 million in 2020, driven by sponsorship from the likes of Coca-Cola, Gillette, and Nike. The start of the pandemic last year gave esports an unexpected boost because with much professional sport past, many real world players started to try their hand at the virtual versions. In the past, people have been criticized for staying in the house and playing video games for hours. But people are now realizing the individuals are out there making a living from video games. That's interesting, isn't it? Yellow Brick, an online learning platform in the last year, launched a gaming and esports course in collaboration with the New York Fashion Institute of Technology. People turned their office into a cyclist cafe. Bruce Tate, business in Newcastle, UK, called Need Music, which handled live bookings for pubs and weddings, was forced to close. He was not entitled to financial support from the government because he drew his income as company dividends. While contemplating his future, sitting at a picnic table outside his office, now he had a light bulb moment, that is illumination. A cyclist whizzed past, that was normal. The office garden overlooks Route 72, also known as Adrian Cycle Way, one of the UK's most popular cycle routes. He suddenly thought, what if he turned this area, which his business was renting away, into a cafe, capitalizing on the passing trade on wheels. Bruce created some covered wooden seating areas, added service hatch to his open kitchen, and Route 72 Cafe opened in July. As predicted, cyclists have provided regular customs, stopping off from simple refreshments like cheese toasties, beans or toast on panini. So, one particular profitable day saw a group of 1,000 riders drop by an en route from Newcastle to whatnot. The new business was gaining momentum and his investments were beginning to pay off when the new tiered restrictions arrived in autumn, followed by a second national lockdown in November. With lockdown now over, Newcastle is in Tier 3, which means the cafe can open for takeaways. Bruce has chosen to open only the weekend for now. Plenty of excitement. People are creating new business model. This digital acceleration, COVID has been the focus now, and everything is virtual, everything is e-modeling.